Xbox Series X DIY attempt. According to the customer, he succeeded getting the port on there and he had all the pins soldered and everything, but he chose to test the unit without soldering the anchors down, and bad things happened from there. So let's take a look at it. So initial impressions, we have at least 5, 6, maybe even 7 critical pads that we're going to have to replace. A lot of discoloration on the board, but before we proceed, I'd like to get all this off the board just in case it's the wrong type of solder or something of that nature. This video is brought to you by PCB Way. We'll talk about their awesome services in a little bit. Let's begin our cleanup process. In order to do that, I will need my equipment. While I'm setting up my equipment, throw up my expected temperatures for this job. These temperatures are brought to you by the Amazon Associate links in the description. If you go to my video description and click on one of these links and buy any of this equipment, a small portion of that purchase will go to supporting the channel. And I greatly appreciate you. It won't cost you an extra dime. When I go to throw the port on, I will probably use my preheater. And that will be set at 170. But first things first, we have a lot of work to do before we worry about putting a port on. I almost forgot. For your orientation purposes, we'll be working on this area of the board and here when we flip it over. And we're going to flip it over now. Whatever they use does not seem to be reacting well with the board. You may have to give this a thorough washing too before proceeding. If they use plumber's flux or something, it's just going to continue getting worse. It is acid based. Whatever you used, it is definitely a struggle to get it off, even for my 120 watt iron. My recommendation to this customer will be never use whatever you used here. Again, hoping my tip survives this. I'm wondering if I shouldn't fire up the ultrasonic and give this thing a thorough bath before I proceed, because if they use like acid-based flux, I'm going to want to get all that off here. I think that's what I'm going to do. We're going to continue cleaning out everything real quick. I want to get all this solder, whatever type of solder it is, out of here before I throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner. Low melt our anchors and probably everything else. Whatever he used is just corroding everything. The ultrasonic my brush after this. That'll have to do for the moment. I am going to throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner. Once it warms up, bathe this area thoroughly. And my drive filled up. Not sure where it cut off, but we ran a thicker line for that big thick trace there, and we should have everything soldered on that side of the board. Now we're going to clean off and secure those down, and then we will run the ones going from the other side. It's just going to be simpler doing it this way. That way, while we're cleaning off with the brush, we're not breaking off jumpers that are run from the other side. Do some gentle cleaning. By gentle, we really want to scrub just one direction to go back and forth. We're going to mess everything up. You need all of the flux up. Flux and UV mask do not mix. Let's get everybody routed where we want them. After this phase, they will kind of permanently be there. And I'll leave a little room on the front side so we can make sure we have it solidly soldered down once we get the port on. Solder mask is non-conductive, so it doesn't matter if it bridges over 2 wires. It won't be pretty, but it will be effective. If you want pretty, don't rip your port off the board. I'm going to try and flatten this bigger one a little bit, so it's not a different size than the other guys. That should do. Make sure everybody's kind of where we want them. I'm going to grab my big lamp. We're going to let it sit and cure for probably about 15 minutes so that's rock solid, and then we'll come back and run the jumpers for the other side. The curing has commenced. Our existing jumpers are well cured down and solidly in place. Now we need to run our jumpers that run in the other direction. I believe it's just those 3. Burn off our enamel. We're going to run these really long. Enamel off that one. Off our enamel. Next step is to clean it off, and we're going to brush with the wire, same as before. Get all the flux out that we can. These guys, I'm not too worried about them being routed perfectly. We're going to be working these after we get the port on, but I do want to secure them down on this side real well. Absolutely cannot afford for them to become unattached. because they will be under the ports, and the only way to rework them again will be to take the port off, and that would be no bueno. Now we're going to give it round 2 under the cure. Head over to PCBWay.com, click PCB Instant Quote, and check out their many offerings like standard PCB, advanced PCB, FPC and rigid flex, assembly, SMD stencil, CNC machining, and much more. Check out my link in the description and get your project started today. Okay, and we are rock solid. Perfect. Now very carefully we're going to scrape off the enamel on the ones that are secured down. Just very lightly going over them, enough to get the enamel off. It's also a very good test for how secure you have them. Let's tin our pads and our jumper wire. We need to deal with these anchors real quick. A few of them are very oxidized. Going to need those to take solder. Grab our preheater and get it set up. Go from there. We're set up on the preheater and we're just waiting for the flux and the board to warm up, and then we'll continue our work. While we wait, we'll go ahead and tin our port. Clear our bridges. Like I always say, I'd rather chase bridges here than on the board. Alright, the board's pretty well warmed up. What I'm going to be concerned about with this phase of the process is wetting these anchor points and seating the port into those anchor points solidly. Ideally, I'd like to get most of the pins soldered, but we're going to go over those by hand anyway. Hold the port down. Do a very delicate nudge test. Okay, those joints have dried. Excellent. I think we will go ahead and hit the anchor points next and flip the board. That is why I use the preheater. This board is very warm. Definitely on that wire. That's excellent. I want to do as much of this on the preheater as I can because it's just going to be easier with the board being as hot as it is. So the only ones we really have to worry about now are the loose ones. They will be their own challenge. For those, we're going to switch to the Pico pencil. See how much manipulation we can get away with here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that under the pin or not. I don't think so. Just going to have to put it on top of the pin. To brush it off the line. There we go. Alright, seems pretty solid to me. The next problem, a little bit touchy. Okay. Grab the leftovers and break it off. Move it around until it fatigues. Everything should be connected. Everything that can be solid is solid. We're going to turn off the preheater, let everything cool down, give it a thorough cleaning, and cross our fingers. We'll do a final inspection after the cleaning before I put it back in the housing. Alright, we've cleaned up and everything is looking good. Nothing's touching that shouldn't be. So I think we are good to reassemble and give it a test. I have an announcement. I, being Mage Repair, am moving back home to Texas. My primary service area in Texas will be North Richland Hills, Hurst, Euless, Bedford, and Fort Worth in general. All mail-in services will be temporarily paused to the month of August and will resume sometime in September when I've worked out all the logistics. If you're a local shop in those areas and need micro soldering services, please reach out. Talk to y'all from Texas in September. Okay, moment of truth. Will we get display? Ta-da! Well, look at that, kids. looks like we were successful in our repair. I'm super excited about that and stoked. 10 jumpers later. Well, in the end, this one took a lot longer than I would have liked. The cleaning process really prolonged everything. So it took most of the day, but we got it done and everything is working again. If you got value out of this video, I think you'll get value out of this one, and I'll see you there.